Hey Reds fans, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Liverpool. And the Liverpool machine rolls on. It was another good win for us. It was I'd say a very, very grim day. You know, at Selhurst Park, I think the lights were on. It was drizzly. It was like rainy. It was grey. It was just like everything that you would kind of associate with like a bad day at the office. Just things, you know, everything just kind of maybe like was set up and conspired to not work for Liverpool against Palace, but we rode above that. We battled hard. Every single player on the pitch and even the subs, everyone that came on battled hard throughout that game, and you know, it showed in the result. I think we deserved to win. It was obviously more close. It was closer than we would have liked, and I think Palace probably will feel a bit hard done by. But you know, Liverpool and Palace have always had very, very good games, particularly at Selhurst Park. I remember earlier this season, actually, the Liverpool-Palace game at Anfield was one of the most craziest games, and one that we were very close to losing. So Palace and Liverpool is a really interesting game. Obviously, Roy Hodgson, ex-Liverpool manager, managing Crystal Palace as well. But yeah, it was a game where some people before were saying, you know, Crystal Palace is a bogey team. Will we trip up against them? I was kind of very much like, you know, about a couple of years ago, I would have definitely agreed with that. But the type of team that Liverpool are now, the mentality we have, I just don't go into a game thinking we're going to lose, and I think that's how the players are thinking as well. And so I think that's something that's incredibly positive for the way that we play. So the game started off relatively kind of slowly. It was kind of like, you know, as you would expect in like a boxing match, right? I watched the highlights of Deontay Wilder, Luis Ortiz, kind of just feeling each other out. We were obviously on the front foot, dominating the ball a bit more, but that's what you would expect of a Liverpool team. But yeah, we weren't able to throw many punches. I think we didn't challenge Guaita, the Crystal Palace goalkeeper, at all in the first half. Actually, the goal in the second half was our first shot on target, so it just kind of showed the struggle we were facing, and that was partly due to us maybe not being as cutting edge as we normally are. Maybe that's not having Mohamed Salah on the pitch, but also, you know, fair play to Crystal Palace. They were also getting lots of men behind the ball and making it very hard for us to kind of get through the lines and get their chance. And we did have a couple of balls. Something that's become kind of a more frequent in our play is the centre-backs, be it Matip and Van Dijk or Lovren and Van Dijk, being able to clip those balls quite long to Sadio Mane or Mohamed Salah, making those runs from outside in. So that was good to see. We had a couple of those chances, but they didn't necessarily come off. But yeah, so the first half kind of went by in just in terms of like a sparring sense. Like we were kind of just feeling each other out. We didn't land any huge punches. They didn't land any huge punches. Well, that was until the 43rd minute. And they had a free kick. And we obviously knew going into this game that Crystal Palace are a team that like set pieces, are very good at set pieces. And we had to respect that and defend really well. And they did score from a free kick kind of just inside from the corner box. So the ball kind of... So it was a good cross in, and then got a flick on at the near post, I think, and then James Tompkins was at the far post where he just headed it into an open net. Kind of, I'm not sure who was marking him because he seemed relatively open, but you know, immediately it didn't look like there was any problem. You know, watching the game, it kind of just seemed like, damn it, we're so close to half time and we've conceded. This is not necessarily the best time for us to concede, because Palace would have been like really kind of jeered on by that in the second half to put in a performance. But yeah, so it was overruled by VAR. Now, like, being a Liverpool fan, I completely, when you watch it back, you see Jordan Ayew's hands on the back of Dejan Lovren, and it is a push, right? Like, you can argue how hard it is or whatever, or maybe he didn't intend it or whatever, or maybe it was just jockeying in the box or whatever. But in the end of the day, it was a push. Now, I think, you know, rival fans and stuff like that will be like, oh, that's really soft, you can't tell how hard he pushed. But if it happens for your team, you know, you're always going to say it's a foul. And I think it was rightly chalked off, I think, in my opinion. I think even though Dejan Lovren wasn't like directly involved, it was a foul. And had that been outside of the box and you as a striker push the centre-back under the ball almost, that's a foul. But I think we get into this whole VAR discussion of like clear and obvious error. I would say on that part, it probably wasn't a clear and obvious error by the referee, so therefore probably shouldn't have gone to VAR. But because it did go to VAR, it was a foul, and so VAR kind of had no choice but to disallow the goal. And I think that was huge for us. I think because we hadn't landed any big punches in that first half. Having that goal disallowed for Palace, and meaning we went into half-time 0-0 was a kind of a bit of a boost for us and a bit of a letdown for Palace. And I think that really felt in the beginning of the second half. Like we started off the second half kind of almost like we've been given a life, and that was really good to see, because we did open them up. Firstly, from a great ball from Henderson through to Mane, and Mane just trying to go for the near post but just missing. But then shortly after, the ball coming into the box from Robertson, I think it was Firmino kind of missing the ball, Mane this time not handling it, just controlling it on his thigh, and then being able to kind of almost just fling his left foot at it, and the ball cannoning off one post, kind of spinning, because the keeper got a touch on it, spinning across the line, and then just settling in the corner with I think Van Aanholt trying to clear it, but the ball had already gone past the line at that point. But I think that the end of the first half played a big part of the beginning of the second half. I think Palace will feel hard done by that goal, particularly after the incident with their goal. But it was no more or less than we deserved. I think we were the more dominant team, and I think we just had to find that breakthrough in the games where, like this one, where we aren't necessarily playing our free-flowing best. These are the games where we need those kind of scrappy goals, maybe that aren't so beautiful, but everything that crosses the line is a goal, regardless of how far or how well the previous play was. And so that was really good for us. And I think after we scored, we settled down a bit. We've had this, in a number of away games this season. The Sheffield United one comes to mind, where we kind of just toiled away and struggled, but we did find a way to win. But we didn't necessarily create the number of chances that we normally do, or actually finish them. So that was obviously a great start to the second half. And as I said, we did start to impose ourselves a little more in the second half. But Palace were also still very much in the game. When you're 1-0 up, the other team is still very much in the game, and they were causing some problems too, as Palace do. Obviously Zaha and Townsend, the chief orchestrators of that, they were both actually really, really good. So fair play to Palace. Zaha, and I think particularly Townsend, was really good. But they did end up actually getting the equaliser, and it was kind of some good play by Zaha on the left, and I think a mixture of Trent and Hendo just weren't able to take him down. I think one of those things with Zaha is one of those players where like the whole tactical foul situation, I think, is totally apt for a player like Zaha. I think you either take the yellow card or you take him out, because when he does get ahead of steam and he gets running, he does cause some serious problems for any team he plays against, whether it's the team top of the league like us or any other team. And so we paid the ultimate price for that, right? He managed to, there was a bit of luck in terms of how the ball kind of ricocheted into the box, but it found its way to him. You kind of let the ball run across him, and actually very, very expertly placed the ball past Alisson. So he did. So I'm not going to lie. When that went in, when I was watching it, I was like, is it going to be one of those days? Is it going to be one of those days where we were good, but just weren't? We were okay, but we weren't good enough. We weren't able to close out the game as and when we needed. But it didn't fall to be that way, and a couple of seasons ago, I think the old Liverpool would have folded under that pressure of going 1-1 and just being very dejected and demoralised, and possibly it looking more likely that Crystal Palace would score a second than we would. But this is a new Liverpool. This is a different Liverpool. This is the Liverpool that Klopp has been working on and developing over the past 3 years. And that whole mentality thing that has been spoken about a lot in the press about Liverpool completely showed, where we picked up a corner, Trent getting the ball into the box, Van Dijk completely unopposed, not sure what the Palace defending was, but it came low at his feet, and he expertly kind of just opened up his right foot and was trying to sneak it into the corner. But there was a couple of Palace players on the line, and although that stopped the Van Dijk goal, I think almost having too many players there confused it for Palace, and they failed to clear the ball, and Roberto Firmino in the 6-yard box, the poacher he is, just smashing the ball with his left foot. I actually think the Crystal Palace keeper actually got a hand on it, but it was too close and was with too much power. So that made it 2-1, and then I kind of let a sigh of relief. We've done it so many times already this season, and I'm sure we will have to do it many more times this season. But we'd scored yet another late goal that could give us the 3 points. But we didn't have it all our way. We were given a scare towards the end. Andros Townsend clipping a ball over to Zaha, and Zaha just blazing over when he should have just kept his knee over the ball and tried to get it on target. And I think he would have caused us many more problems had he done that. But another late win. exactly what we needed. We needed 3 points. Obviously, we couldn't rely on Chelsea, taking points off Man City, and they didn't. And so to keep that gap, both to City and Leicester, actually, we shouldn't forget about Leicester. Leicester are actually closer to us than City. So it was very important with Leicester having won, or Leicester winning also at home against Brighton, that we also picked up 3 points, and that was really, really big for us. And there was a couple of players in particular in this game that really stood out to me. And for me, that's both the centre-back. So Van Dijk, nothing really needs to be said. Van Dijk is just so supremely confident, and we just never look like we're in trouble when he's there. The other centre-back, Lovren, in past seasons, me and the media and Liverpool fans have sometimes been critical of Lovren and the mistakes he's made, but I think it's only right that when he's playing well and he's actually defending really, really well, that we also praise him for that. And I think in this Crystal Palace game we saw he was very composed. He was playing at the back. He didn't really look nervous on the ball, and I actually think it's one of those things where you look at the players and the defenders that have played alongside Van Dijk, and they all just look better when they play alongside him. Matip looks like a different player when he plays alongside Van Dijk, and same with Lovren. It very much reminds me of kind of like the old United teams where you had kind of like the whole Ferdinand Vidic thing, and if one of them wasn't playing, the other centre back that came in, and that's what made players like John O'Shea, Wes Brown, like who probably weren't that good, actually seem very good, because they just their game was elevated when they were playing next to a centre back of that quality. So yeah, I think those two are really good, and I think Oxlade-Chamberlain as well. Like obviously Oxlade-Chamberlain was playing in that kind of the front three roles with Mohamed Salah not playing. You can tell that's not his natural position, and he doesn't necessarily feel at home, and he doesn't have the same impact. However, what he has brought to the team in the last couple of weeks, and what he will continue to bring to the team over the next weeks and months, is like he's so dynamic. He's always looking to go forward, always looking to get a strike away, and I think that's a real asset for us, and it just gives us like a different edge that we don't normally have with our midfielders. So yeah, he's developing and coming on really well this season, and I'm super excited to see how he progresses. But as we always do, guys, at the end of this episode, we always end with a shout out to Klopp. And the shout out this week is, so Mohamed Salah wasn't playing. I think Klopp came out and said that he hadn't trained for like 9 days and only started training in the last couple of days. And I think when the front three don't play, I think we become a little bit predictable and we find it a little more difficult. And so I think then we need to give the midfielders kind of more license to get forward. So we've seen what Gini Wijnaldum can do for the Netherlands, scoring a hat-trick in I think Estonia, I think it was. And even Jordan Henderson scoring a few goals this season. So I think I would like to, when the front three aren't all playing, I'd like the midfielders to have a bit more license to go beyond the strikers, because I think that would just give us an additional threat and something different, particularly when all front three are there. Because when all front three are there, they can handle most of that load, and the midfielders can support. But when one or two of them aren't there, we often do struggle in terms of a creative sense. So yeah, that's kind of just the only advice, or my shout out to Klopp. So I don't know whether he would ever hear any of these shout outs to him, but hopefully he does. But anyway, so that, guys, was the review of the Crystal Palace game. We've got Champions League game in the week against Napoli, which is huge. Obviously last year that was a huge home game for us, which we won 1-0. And then we've got Brighton next week in the Premier League. So make sure you guys tune in for that Brighton game. Hopefully the Champions League game goes well as well, and we can wrap up our qualification in the group. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you on the next episode.